3, 2, 1, let's go. So you could tell I'm a little bit excited for this introduction. It almost threw Cage back.
Yeah, man.
The reason is
I didn't know you know how to count.
I only backwards. We've done over 450 episodes. Throughout that process, we've learned that our 10 for 10 series is hands down our most popular, right? And we brought it back with a little bit of a twist. So we always try to bring these 10 for 10s back by listening to our audience and trying to do something that would benefit them. So what have we seen? We've seen the rich get richer, companies buy each other out, grading companies close down, but the collector be kind of left and then we're saying, you know, what's next? Where are we at? And we want to do this 10 for 10, bringing on collectors who have been a part of the game, who've been through some ebbs and flows, some cycles. And, you know, maybe they could share a little positivity, a little bit of foresight, a little strategy that could help the people out there who are listening also know how to navigate the sports card hobby the next 12, 18 months. I'm not sure there's anybody better to kick the show off with than the realist. You know, this guy's going to give it to you straight. And he's very well respected in the hobby. Big Tom Brady collector. We're going to get into all types of topics. And guys, you guys know we're off the cuff. We're casual. There's going to be some cursing. There might be a few F-bombs here or there. If there's kids listening, maybe ask them to step outside. Kevin, DaCaptain37. Dude, it's good to have you on the show. I appreciate you being here.
Guys, thanks a lot. I really appreciate it. Listen, it's Friday, end of the work week, after dealing with kids all week, so there's probably a few F-bombs coming, just FYI. So
nice.
Good.
Well,
So
he said Tom Brady fan, but you're DaCaptain, so he meant Derek Jeter fan, right? He meant you were.
Listen. First off, if you're a Yankees fan, I want to apologize for your loss. I'll send you a sympathy card, right? But listen, I'm a diehard Sox fan, right? So obviously feeling pretty good. The other night, not so much this morning after the game, but I always respected Jeter, man. I mean, you got to respect the GOATs. So I got a ton of respect for him.
Yep. Well, I mean, it's good to hear that. Most Red Sox fans don't say nice things about Jeter. But
well, I mean, honestly, I'm a diehard Raiders fan, right? Who loves Peyton Manning, so I hated Brady so much.
Wait. Yeah, I'm a Raider fan also, which is weird.
You're a Raiders fan?
Why are either of us Raiders fans? I've gone through that story a bunch of times. But how the hell can you be a Brady guy?
Did we become best friends? You're a Raiders fan?
No, but if you can answer this the right way, if you happen to see Randy Jackson on the street and all you have on you is a samurai sword, do you get him to sign it?
That's a great question. I mean, I think you just have to, right?
You have to, right? I mean, you got to get him to sign it, right?
Absolutely.
Let's go do karate.
I mean, Step Brothers would be disappointed if
So, how the hell are you a Brady fan, man? After the Tuck rule? I mean,
It's so funny. I legit just had a Tuck rule conversation. It's like, I feel like I have one once a month. Like, it's just whenever my day wants to be ruined, somebody brings up the Tuck rule. But no, I mean, for me, like, you know, the Raiders fandom, I mean, when I was younger, I came from a non-Patriot household. I'm from New England originally, from Massachusetts. So my father's a diehard Colts fan. You know, back to the United States, my mom was always a Dolphins fan. So I was growing up to hate the Patriots. So when I was younger, my mom just said, you love the Raiders symbol. Like when you were 5, you were obsessed with it. You liked the, you know, so I was like, it just stuck to, you know, pure fandom and 35 years of straight misery for the most part. But, you know, I mean,
were you alive for 18? Were you hear him for Super Bowl 18? At least I remember that.
No, nothing. Yeah, I literally, like, you know, when I tell people I'm a loyal person, I just point to my phone and the Raiders logo, and there it is. There's my loyalty, right? But I mean, Peyton Manning's my favorite player of all time. I mean, I loved him at Tennessee. I love I think he completely changed the game. So naturally, between the Raiders and between Peyton, Love, I hated the Patriots, hated Brady, and then you just realize at some point you're just a hater, right? I mean, you know, you spend all this energy hating when you could be appreciating the greatness and the rivalries and, you know, the Peyton and Brady must-see TV. I mean, you know, the history there. And then you look at it now, and, you know, I was talking to Brett from Stacking Slabs a lot about this. Like, they're boys, right? Like, they're buddies. You know, the golf tournament, I mean, you know, when Brady tore his ACL, Peyton was the first person to call him. When Peyton had the neck stuff, Brady was the first person to call him. They've always supported each other behind the scenes through the rivalry, right? So I'm like, you know, I spent so much time hating when I should have been appreciating what I'm watching. You know,
it really is an important thing right there. I mean, I'll tell you, people who listen to our show know I'm a Jordan collector. You know, I collect Jordan. Growing up, I was a Knicks fan. I was a huge Patrick Ewing fan.
Tough.
I hated Michael Jordan. Hated him. I hated him for the exact same reason. I believe he prevented Patrick Ewing from winning multiple championships. That's what my thought was. I probably am wrong. but as a jaded Knick fan, that Knick team couldn't get over their hurdles.
Yep.
And when Jordan finally left, that was when Hakeem decided he was going to be the best player in the league and keep the Knicks from it. But there came a point in time where you just had to appreciate the greatness of what you were watching.
100%.
And it's an important lesson there, right? Because I collect Jordan. Maybe I should collect more Brady. I don't really own much in the way of Brady. And maybe Andrew's about to tell me that I should stop hating Michael Porter Jr. so much and just appreciate the greatness of Michael Porter Jesus. The GOATs are the GOATs.
Michael Porter Jesus. I love it. And also what you said with, I mean, how many, Jordan stopping Ewing from winning all that. I feel the same way about Peyton, right? Like, I often say if you remove Tom Brady's career, like just remove him from the conversation, he never happened.
Yep.
So, Brady's parents never made it happen, right? How many Super Bowls did Peyton Manning have? Because, I mean, I would make an argument that Peyton is number 2 all time behind Brady. I think you can go back and forth between him and Montana, right? But without Brady, I mean, he had to go up his entire career against the GOAT.
Yep.
Right. There's something to be said about that, right? So you're going to penalize the guy for only winning 1 Super Bowl in Indy when he literally had to go through Brady all the time. I mean, that's bullshit in my eyes. So.
Whose stock has fallen more than Belichick's, right? Like when Belichick, when they were on the same team, Belichick was GM, Brady was playing. It was kind of like a 50-50, right? They both deserve the credit. Since Brady went to Tampa Bay, won a Super Bowl there, it's almost now like he's the 80% and Belichick's like kind of less important. I don't know if that's the right way to word it. Where are you on that?
So, I mean, first off, I'm a coach, right? I'm a high school teacher. I'm the head basketball coach of my high school. I coached high school football for 7 years. So I got a lot of respect for the coaching aspect of the game. Whereas, I feel like the NFL is kind of moving toward the NBA in a sense where it's becoming more the players league, where the players are running the show and starting to dictate stuff. Like you look at, Brady himself, right? You look at the Rodgers stuff that happened recently. I think there's definitely been a shift where it's kind of gone more toward a players league in the NFL. Whereas it used to be old school, it's coaches, that's it. What they say goes. So there's been a shift there. But I mean, for me, I've kind of seen like, I'm in a bunch of Brady group chats on Instagram, right? I'm around a ton of Patriots fans all the time. I think that the true football fans understand that it's still 50-50. I mean, there's a lot of bullshit that came out with, was there rocky relationship, blah, blah, blah. They didn't want Brady to stay. Brady didn't want to stay. He wanted to leave. I mean, we could talk about that for hours, right? I think at the end of the day, that was the perfect match made in heaven, and that's it. So, I mean, I think if you remove Belichick from the Patriots, does Brady still win Super Bowls? Absolutely. I think so. With that being said, you look at Brady early in his career, I mean, he wasn't really this, quarterback that people feared, right? I mean, he was a system quarterback, right? My Brady chat's going to hate me for saying that, but this is like his career could be separated into like 3 different careers, right? Look at him now. He's sure as shit not a system quarterback now. I mean, he's
the game changed, though. Yeah. He changed with the game. Like, I remember drafting Brady in fantasy one year because I forgot to draft a quarterback. And people were like, Brady, what if you drafted Brady? It was like the 11th round, and they still were like, why are you drafting him? He's going to have, nothing. He's going to have no stats, and the game kind of changed with him. So I have 2 things to say about your 50-50 Belichick, Brady. One of them will be a question, so I'll ask that second, and one's a statement. You can't give them both 50-50 because you got to give the NFL, the league, 10% of it. They're 45-45. The league is 10% because Al Davis sued them and the league holds a grudge. So they made the refs come up with this bullshit tuck rule thing, the snow game. Because Brady would have less touchdowns. He'd have less Super Bowls.
I got to go make a drink.
The league stepping in. The league calling it down, saying, oh, yeah. That wasn't a fumble. F that Woodson and those Raider guys. It was a pass. That wasn't a pass. Tuck rule
and they want to just make it out a lie. If that game was in Oakland, there's no way that call's made.
I mean, come on. So
you guys really remember this 22 years ago?
Dude,
I can tell you where I was sitting, who I was in the room with, who I wanted to punch in the face. Like I can tell you all of it.
I can tell you how much damage I did to a hotel room in Atlantic
City. You saw playing out in front of your eyes. Is this under the conspiracy theory?
Just watch it. Watch the video. Just watch Charles Woodson's hit and say that was a pass.
It's not a pass. The refs make like 16 bad calls per game every single weekend.
This allowed Brady to move on. This was the end of a playoff game. This is not one of 15 bad calls in the Browns against the Falcons, and no one gives a shit. Like this was the game. Like the team that won this was likely going to win the Super Bowl, and the refs were going to decide which one of these teams advanced based on this call. It's huge.
You
cannot even, understate it. So that's one, give it the league, because a couple times the Raiders got hosed and Brady got rings. Thank you, NFL. Two, my question for you, because this is now, if Belichick's really 50%, how many Super Bowls would Bledsoe have won?
It's a great question. I mean, I think that early in the career, like early in Brady's career, I think it would have been pretty similar, right? I mean, the one thing that Bledsoe did that Brady did, he threw more picks and turned the ball over more. So Brady was a lot safer with the football, and I think that's what drew the Patriots organization to Brady. But I always point to the fact, so when I used to argue back in the day that Peyton was the GOAT, I can remember Friday nights at the card shop, going back and forth with people, throwing haymakers at each other. I'm arguing Peyton. I'm dying on this hill, right? My whole thing was, okay, Brady went down, tore his ACL. What happened? Matt Castle went 11-5.
Yeah.
So, I mean, something to be said about the system was working, right? And they could have plugged, whoever they wanted to. And now the game evolved, and you said that, right? So game evolved, as did Brady. Brady became the guy who was running the show. It wasn't a system guy anymore, second half of his career.
Yep.
Right? So I think that's part of the reason why he left. I mean, you look at, did the Patriots want to cut ties with Brady, or did Brady want to leave the Patriots? I think it probably was a little bit of both. I think if he really wanted to stay, I think Kraft loves him so much as a son that he would have made it work. But I think Brady saw the writing on the wall. This isn't a system league anymore. Like, you need weapons on the outside, on the perimeter. It's gone to a more spread system. These teams that just pound the rock and run the ball, it's all fine and dandy during the preseason. Look at the Ravens, right? It's the reason why the Ravens don't win in the playoffs, right? I mean, it's the same script. You can't just completely run the ball all the time. You have to open up and throw the ball. I think Brady saw that. I think Brady knew he was done winning with the Patriots. And you want to talk about an unbelievable business decision that he made. But look at where it is now. I mean, you look at him now, it's so funny. If you ask somebody who knows nothing about football, how old is the quarterback right there, number 12, playing for Tampa Bay? There's no way they're saying 45. There's just no way, right? He looks like he's in his mid-30s out there. His arm's stronger than ever. It's absolutely remarkable. So, he is so much better now than he was earlier in his career, which is just freaking insane, right? Because I look at what happened to Peyton down the stretch. I mean, Peyton was a shell of himself, obviously out of his control with the neck and stuff like that. I look at Big Ben right now. I mean, my God, he looks like he's 105 out there. Like, it's terrible, to see. And then you look at a guy like Brady, who's just excelling and continuing to get better. It's just it blows my mind. It's unreal.
A book that changed my life, and people out of New England know about this. It's the TB12
Green Eggs and
method.
Ham.
Yeah,
No.
Well, Green Eggs and Ham's number 1. Twilight is number 2, but
Yes.
a close third is the TB12 method.
Were you Team Jacob or Team Edward?
No, I like the girl.
Okay.
Well, that's good.
Okay.
One's a werewolf, though, so I'm a tiger. I like tigers. So the TB12 method and how his diet and pliability is a big thing, right? Guerrero is his business partner, and they set up this whole facility to keep him healthier, more active, and train the right way and eat the right way. So, guys, if you have never read this book, TB12 method, check it out. He credits this method to his longevity.
Yeah, as I have my
10th
Captain and Diet Coke tonight and a bag of chips, I'll definitely take a look at that for sure, no doubt.
45 Chick-fil-A diet. That's how I rock.
Well, listen, that's actually a great thing to talk about, right? This guy is his dedication to his body in the game, right? It's also why now he's got the Brady brand going, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, in terms of collecting guys in long-term scope and sequence, right? I want to have guys who are going to stay relevant after they leave the game, because you always worry about what's going to happen to a guy's stuff once he leaves, right? So for me, right now with Peyton doing the Monday night thing, I love it. He's still in the spotlight, right? Big ambassador of the game. Brady's still going to be around. It's not like he's just going to fade into existence. And I actually think at one point earlier in his career, there was a little bit of worry about that because, didn't have a ton of autographs out there, wanted no part of it, right? I mean, Peyton Manning signed 500 times more than he did, right? His wife's making 3 times what he does. What reason does he have to, once he leaves football, to stick around, right? And
his wife makes more than him.
No,
Brady.
Giselle, right?
Brady.
So it's now Brady with the whole brand and the TB12 method and stuff like that. Boy, is he going to be relevant for a long, long time.
Yeah, Peyton's going to be relevant too. Did you hear what the state of Nebraska just did? They're changing the name of one of the cities to Peyton. It's going to be Peyton, Nebraska. It's no longer going to be known as Omaha. He used it so often.
Love it.
They're just going to name it Peyton.
I think it's a smart move.
So let me ask you, so for collectors, for people listening, so we could add value to them, what prospects or what talent are you excited in the NFL?
Whoa.
Both from a potential standpoint, but also a card investing standpoint. So let's use Justin Herbert for comparison. Ton of upside still, right? I mean, Incredible arm. He's had an incredible first year and a half of playing, but his prices are super high. So not only from performance, but from a sports card perspective, who would you be looking at that in the NFL?
Yeah, I feel like first of all, I love Herbert, right? I love him. I think he's the real deal, and I'm a guy who I never prospect, right? I invest in a guy once he passes my eye test, right? So, I wasn't in on Mahomes super early. I'm going to have a ton of Mahomes stuff. But I waited to see that I actually waited until he won the Super Bowl against San Fran to actually say, all right, this kid's the real deal, because my whole thing was, all right, Brady's not going to be around forever. Who's going to be the next dude to come up? And I went with Mahomes, right? Fortunately, it worked out, right? But Mahomes stuff, even after his Super Bowl, was never as high as what Herbert is right now. Of course, the market's changed a ton since then. But it's so tough to get into Herbert stuff. It's so damn high, right? And it should be. But at the same time, it's like I was looking at some stuff the other day, and I'm not an expert in the Herbert market. I was just looking at a couple different cards. And they haven't spiked as much as I normally would think they would with the hot start that he's had.
Because they were high to begin with.
That's what I'm saying, right? So it's like,
nobody knows this better than me. 450 episodes in, I know what high looks like.
Yeah.
And Herbert's cards are high.
It's insane, right? And, the risk, I think understanding the risk factor of what you have in your card portfolio, so to speak, is very important, right? So for me, this summer at the National and the shows I've done since then, my goal was to cash out of like 30% of my Mahomes because, there's a lot more inherent risk in Mahomes long-term than there is Brady. Right. So my goal was to, all right, listen, I've done well at Mahomes. I think it's smart. I still love him. I think he's the guy. I think he's going to be the face of the league.
Right. You didn't liquidate, but you took some of your profit off the table.
No, I think it's smart to, hey, listen, let's take X amount, cash out, hedge the bet a little bit. That way, if something does happen, I can say, listen, I'm all set now. Like I'm into the rest of this stuff. I play with house money at this point, right? And I think it's tough when you love the hobby and you're a collector, which I am. I've been collecting since I was 5 years old. It can be tough to let go of stuff at times, but with that being said, it's also smart. I mean, I'm at a different point in my life right now, right? I mean, I got a 4-year-old and a 6-month-old at home.
Ooh,
no kidding, right? 2 hours of sleep last night, man. It was freaking brutal. We just bought a new home. I got the man cave set up behind me with my bar, right? So, I mean,
literally the dream.
Right. Cashing out of some of that shit allowed me to do this stuff, right? So, it gets to a point where, okay, you got to have a sit down and a moment with your cards and say, hey, listen, this is what I can par with. This is what I can, because I got real life shit coming up. Right. So it's just, so back to Herbert. I don't know how I can justify spending a ton of money on Herbert right now. I feel like if you're not in, like, I wouldn't mind trading. Like, so if somebody goes up to the show, I'm setting up at our local show Monday, the Dead and Mash show. Then I got Chris Costa's show, Causeway Card Show, next Saturday. He's a great guy, does a hell of a job with that show. I know he came on the show. Yep. He had nothing but great things to say about you guys and what you're doing here. Like if somebody comes up with a couple of Herberts and they want to trade for some Mahomes or some basketball I got or something like that, cool, that's fine. But I'm not trading Brady for that shit. Right? I mean, it's just and to buy it, it's just so tough because Cage, like you said, high. High prices, right? Yeah. And this is just, it's insane.
It's high.
It really is.
A couple ways of going with it, right? So number
real quick, October 16th is the Costa show. And if you guys are in the tri-state area, I mean, it's a show, it's entertainment, it's fun. Highly recommend if you're in the tri-state area, the 16th of October, stop on by.
No doubt. If you want to wheel and deal, a lot of the bigger dealers in the in our area always go there. So it's usually a great show in terms of getting deals done. Yeah, October 16th, Saturday. Yep.
Sorry, Cage.
No. I mean, listen, it's a competitive show. There's a Hofstra show also the same weekend. So it's pretty interesting.
So with the Hofstra, they canceled one of the days.
Yeah, it was a big storm. So here you go. Number. We'll take it on Andrew's question, which is, if you're not going to prospect on Herbert, is there a QB now that you think could fill that? I mean, obviously Mahomes could be that. Herbert could be that. Yep. Is there somebody else out there that's kind of under the radar? And then, before I forget, because you're a Brady guy, we went off the Brady topic, and I'll let you answer this one. Either way. So, is there a quarterback prospect you like that could be the next Brady? But on the Brady topic, somebody had me on their show recently as a guest, and they asked me iconic baseball, most iconic football, most iconic, but what's the most iconic football card? And I had a hard time. I wanted to give a Brady card, right? I wanted to give a Brady card, but as Andrew told you at the beginning, I'm not a huge autograph guy, and I guess the Contenders auto is, but Brady, because he is more modern, because he came out at a time where there were a lot of cards. What do you consider the iconic Brady card? Or are there 3 cards, 5 cards that you would say, you know what, if you're building a Brady mutual fund, these are the ones you got to get in there. So take it whichever way you want. Go Brady, give who could be the next Brady. Go ahead, Andrew.
And for our new listeners, guys, because our audience is growing, our show's growing, I do like to contextualize things. Cage has always been a fan of those true rookies. Like Joe Montana.
That's what I gave. That's what I gave.
Jerry Rice, 1 rookie.
Yep.
So just to give context to a lot of the people who are listening for the first time.
Yeah, so I mean, the Brady answer is going to be a lot longer, so I'll start with the quarterback that I like, that's not named Brady, right? I love Kyler. I'm a big Kyler fan. I think that he brings a level of excitement to the game that's just awesome to see. It definitely attracts a younger fan base as well. He's smaller. I'm a small guy myself, so I got a soft spot for him, right? I'm a huge Russell Wilson guy. Sucks what happened to him last night, but you look at there's where I look at Herbert, right? You look at Herbert stuff versus Russell Wilson stuff, right? Russell Wilson's been to 2 Super Bowls. He beat Peyton Manning in the Super Bowl, right? He has accomplished what some quarterbacks would dream of accomplishing in their entire career already, right? And just because he hasn't kind of done that the past few years, he's kind of fallen out of sight, out of mind, right? So it's like Herbert prices right now, you're basically saying he's going to be pretty damn close to Tom Brady, which I don't understand, right? Whereas there's value in a guy like Wilson in my eyes right now, they're not sitting exactly pretty right now, right? But it also shows you kind of the risk in the market, which how quick guys can fall out of sight, out of mind. It just amazes me how lower Wilson stuff is compared to Mahomes before Mahomes won one, right? It just blows my mind how there's some guys who are already out there and established, and their stuff is not even selling close to what some of these younger guys who, are the new sexy thing that people want to buy. It's just like people are always looking for the next best thing, right? And that's where, and I've been saying this for a long time, instead of looking for the next best thing, buy the best thing, right? So buy the GOATs. By the guys who are established, right? You're gonna, it might be lower risk, but it's sure as hell might be lower reward, but it's sure as hell lower risk. And that's how I am in terms of investing, and that's why I went the Brady route, the Peyton man. I've always had Peyton stuff. I continue to stock up on Peyton stuff, so I always thought he was undervalued. He's finally getting some due. But if I was to pick a guy, I'm going to say, hey, listen, I'm going to take X amount of money and pour into this. It would be Russell Wilson or Kyler in my eyes. So that those are my guys.
Kyler's gotten smarter too, right? I talked to Cage about this. We look at surface level stats as like running, right? Yeah. Rushing yards or speed. Like Kyler's fast, Lamar's fast. But is he running with the thought of throwing down the field, or is he just running and he puts his head down? It's a great point. It's a subtle nuance, but I think you've seen this from Kyler this year. He runs to get out of trouble, but he's looking downfield to make that play.
But he also avoids contact, which is great for the running quarterbacks. It's almost like
he's kind of watched Russell Wilson a little bit. I think Russell Wilson does a great job. Of course, we're talking about this now. People are going to think I'm an idiot because he just got hurt last night, right? But he dislocated his finger, right? Well, I think Russell Wilson does a great job of still being mobile, all right? He might be one of the, if not the best quarterback I've ever seen throwing on the run across his body, right? And he doesn't take a ton of big shots, whereas Lamar takes a shit ton of hits he shouldn't have to take. Right. A guy who takes a shit ton of shots who scares me is Josh Allen. Right. He's kind of got that Cam Newton effect where he's so big and strong. He still kind of feels like he can run over people like he's in high school. Right. Whereas he shouldn't be taking those shots are going to add up on him. And I like Allen a lot. Like I think he's an absolute stud. But in terms of would I be a little nervous if I had a shit ton of money invested in him? Hell yeah. Because he takes a pummeling. Watching the Bills game a couple weeks ago, they're blowing people out. He's still running around and trying to run people over. It's like, what the hell are you doing, man? Like,
it's funny, man.
It's crazy.
You're 100% right, Andrew. It's funny you've hit on the 2 guys Andrew likes. I mean, he likes Lamar and he likes Josh Allen. I think we've hit the nail on the head. I mean, Andrew's a fan of the guys who take shots.
Andrew looks shocked right there.
He just makes things up as we go, and I don't know what to do to also entertain the audience, but also defend my reputation. I got to ask you, Kevin. So. You grew up collecting. How do you, I don't know how to totally word this, but try to stay with me. Like, how do you navigate from doing this for joy and, buy the card you love versus also understanding you have, 7 figures into a card, right? Because people say, buy what you love. Well, I don't love things like I buy for 10K and go to 0. That's not a great feeling. But I also, so how do I balance those two?
So you don't like getting kicked to the nuts, is what you're saying. Basically.
Not fun. Not a good.
That makes a lot of sense to me. I think the viewers will be able to relate to that definitely. So that's a great question. So this is actually why I sold my Raiders PC that I had. So when I, growing up, I collected what I first of all, I think collect what you love is the most cliche thing that's said right now in the hobby, right? And it's like the politically correct thing to say. People come on, what should you buy? Oh, collect what you love. Let's all, be loving toward the hobby and love each other and collect what we love. That's all fine and dandy, right? But guys, guess what? No matter what, at some point, your cards are going to turn to money, whether it's through you or whether it's through who you pass them down to, whatever. Right. So when I started to think like that, I started to think to myself, all right, I'm not trying to sound morbid here, right? But if something happened to me, how easy would it be for my family wife to liquidate my collection and get money so they can, survive and help themselves, right? So I'm looking at my Raiders PC and all these, autographs that I paid $3 and $5 for and stuff like that, all the inserts. And I have, 3 rows upon 3 rows. And I'm like, holy shit, like that's going to be incredible to have to deal with, right? And someone's going to give my wife pennies on the dollar for that shit. And I'm going to be rolling over in my damn grave, right? Looking at this stuff, right? So I said, you know what? I'm going to collect what I love. I am going to collect what I love, but I'm going to do it intelligently, and understand that there's always an end game. Like, no matter what, you're not, as much as I say I'm going to bury my cards with me, I probably will bury some with me. I'll probably put that in the will, right? But, eventually your cards turn to money. That's the facts, right? So I said, all right, listen, I'm going to love the Raiders. I'm going to have Raiders stuff in my man cave. I'm going to, but I'm done with the cards because, I'm going to sell that part off. And I basically turn that money into Brady. Right. So as I developed the respect for him and what he's done for the game, and it allowed me to buy more Peyton Manning stuff. So, I mean, something happens to me tomorrow, Brady, Peyton, Mahomes, going to be pretty easy for my family to get rid of and be okay financially. So, I guess with that mindset, I still believe in the collect what you love, but at the same time, collect what you love intelligently, if that kind of makes sense. So that's kind of where I would. That was me. Like, we had, when my wife got pregnant with our first kid, my son Grayson. That's where I was kind of shifting toward. Like, all right, we got some real life stuff going on right now. I got to start thinking. I can't just go to the card shop Friday night and blow $200 on random ass Raiders cards. Right? There's an end game here. Now my stuff's going to somebody. Right now, there's a bigger picture. So I guess it kind of depends on what point in your life you're at. So, I mean, it's kind of a loaded question that, and you can have multiple answers, but me, where I am, that's kind of where I stand on it.
What are the iconic Brady cards? You building a mutual fund of Brady? Go. I
just put a note. I said, talk big Brady cards, right? So I wanted to make sure we got back to that. So, for me, and I kind of like put my money where my mouth is in terms of what I tell people are the iconic cards. I have them and they're not going anywhere, right? So it's not like, so many people try to pump their own shit. Right. That's just the world we live in right now. Right. That the influencers, that's not what I'm trying to do. Right. I mean, I don't think it's a secret that Brady stuff's worth a lot of money and that, that's not a secret. Right. So for me, talking first of all, rookie cards, it's his Bowman Chrome rookie. Right. I think that's the 86 Flair Jordan of football in my eyes. Right. So whereas that's higher pop, people are like, oh, wait, don't you want the rare stuff? Blah, blah, blah. Of course I do. Right. But I also want the card everybody wants. Right. And there's a reason why every show I set up at, guaranteed 5 people come to me and say, hey, you got a Brady Bowman Chrome rookie for sale, right? So people are always looking for it. So
over the SP Authentic?
Well, that's a different ballpark in terms of price point, right? So I don't think I've actually owned an SP Authentic Brady, to be honest with you, now that you say that. It's always just been out of my reach. Of course, I wish it was more in my reach when it was at, 2, 3, 4, 5K.
Yeah, well, it's funny you say that, right? It's an extension of the hatred that we talked about in the beginning, right? Like, I hated Jordan, and if I didn't hate him and I appreciated his greatness when I was collecting as a kid, I would have bought more Jordan cards, 100%. But I hated him. Right. It's exactly the same thing. But that hatred continues to the price point, right? When I got back into the hobby, you're 100% right. That SP Authentic was available $4,000, as many as you wanted on eBay. I mean, it's numbered, so not as many as you wanted. But and then next thing you know, it's 15, 20, 25, 50.
Yep.
And I'm like, I guess I'm not getting this one now.
Yeah. And you kind of get bitter, right? It's like
very bitter.
Hell, right? So I hear that. So I mean, in terms of rookie, that's for me, that's the most high demand rookie card. Because there's a lot of stuff people don't know about his rookie cards. There's some weird low numbered quirky ones and stuff that's lower pop that, and I kind of find that the more you have to explain to somebody why something's valuable, the less they want to buy it, if that makes sense.
Yep.
Right. So that's why everybody wants his Bowman, because that's what people know. People who are coming over from the basketball market or other markets who haven't dealt with Brady before, they know the Bowman Chrome, they want that. And I understand that. For me, non-rookie wise, it's his 2002 Topps Chrome refractor. I think that and the 2012 Prism Silver have become his 2 most important and marquee non-rookie cards. And I own them both. I have a 2002 Topps Chrome Black Refractor PSA 10. I actually had 2 of them. I just recently, probably in the last couple of months, moved my spare to my good friend Joey E-Trader in a big deal that we did.
Can you explain? So that's his first Topps Chrome card.
Yeah, so that's his first appearance in Topps Chrome. So he didn't have a Topps Chrome rookie card. And people, you forget that this guy was a 6th round, nobody who nobody gave a shit about, right? So, he had no cards produced in 2001, maybe like a handful of cards max. So 2002 comes around and he's won a Super Bowl, and now people know who he is and stuff like that. And he starts getting produced, and he's put in sets for the first time that he wasn't put into as a rookie. So now you have the 2002 rookie cards, right? His first appearance, first edition, right? And that's been a big thing. People are going with, first this, first Kaboom, first Downtown, first this, right? First Color Blast. That's been a big thing recently in the past few months in the hobby, right?
Stop making fetch happen. Stop trying to make fetch happen.
That's his first appearance in Topps Chrome. You look at the base card, right? So, his 2012 Prism base card PSA 10, all of a sudden started selling for like $1,000, then $1,500, then $2K, then $2,500. And I'm sitting there with mine that I paid $20 for. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? Like, this isn't a super rare card, right? So then, people started grading them more because they're out there, right? And now that card's probably $600 to $1,000, right? Where it should be. You look at 2002 Topps Chrome, people know about that card now, but those aren't going to come out of the woodwork and raise the pop, right? Because, those 2002 Topps Chrome base cards were, first of all, they're super off-centered, right? They weren't printed well. They've been sitting in dollar boxes for years. They're all scratched up, right? So that's not going to be a pop explosion like the 2012 Prism base card was. So that card has steadily risen. Like, if you put like charts of those two next to each other, like your card ladder, and look at the charts, right? It's going to be totally opposite, ends of the spectrum in terms of the 2002 Topps Chrome PSA 10 has steadily climbed, whereas the 2012 Prism went up, went back down. Now it's come back and level off a little bit, right? The refractor numbered to 599, super rare, and they're super condition sensitive. I've owned many of that card, some raw, and they always beat the shit. So the PSA 10 was a pop 12 forever. It actually someone just PSA 10 won in the last couple of months, so it's a pop 13. But I mean, what's the max that thing's going to go to? Maybe pop 20 in the next 10 years, right? It's not going to shoot up through the roof. So I think that's a card that's in high demand. That I would say the 3 cards I'm asked most about at shows: the Bowman Chrome Rookie, 2012 Prism Silver, and 2002 Topps Chrome Black Refractor. So, just naturally based on that, I mean, I believe those are his most marquee non-rookie cards. But you just look at demand and what people want, and that's what I'm seeing as well.
Kate, how are we doing with time? I know you have to go get little Ian from school today.
Time is it?
Friday night, 5 p.m. Eastern. But I do want to ask, I have 2 more questions. I have 2 more big ones. So, Kevin, do you collect basketball at all?
So I've started dabbling basketball the past couple of years. I got MC Sports Cards, a good friend of mine. He's always told me you should get into basketball. A couple other buddies have told me, hey, listen, you should start to get into that. And I did. And I did well with it, especially with LeBron stuff. I got into LeBron stuff and did pretty well with it. It doesn't excite me as much as football. That's where my heart lies. But I also found that doing a second sport, I would advise anybody out there to pick up a second sport. If you just do baseball, do football or basketball too. You just do basketball, do some football, because it makes trading so much easier. And now in the world we live in now, where it seems like every card's a 4 to 5 figure card nowadays, right? Of anybody who's good, right? People don't have, I was talking about this before the National. People don't have 10 grand in their pocket to buy shit at shows, especially these local shows, right? So if you want to move some of your bigger cards, you have to be willing to take in some trade. So when I started to do basketball in a second sport, it made that aspect a hell of a lot easier. I was able to move stuff quicker. So one of the best things I ever did. So
that's interesting.
Yeah.
So what you're saying there is people don't have a ton of cash liquidity for the higher end cards. So what you could do is do a card for a card trade and add a little bit of prospecting to kind of get people over the top and get deals done.
100%. Yeah. I mean, I'm moving a high end card. I'm always going to want some cash in there, but I'm very realistic in the sense that, if you go to a local show that you set up at, how many people are walking around with 5 figures in their pocket? And the answer is less than 1%, right? So if you want to move cards, if you just want, you either want to go set up a museum, right? And nobody was just going to look and go, wow, and just walk by, or you want to try to move some shit, right? You got to be willing to take on some trades. So, I mean, I've been pretty safe with basketball. Like I don't do a ton of prospecting there. Like you guys mentioned Michael Porter earlier. He's not a guy that you're going to see in my showcase, right? I do like him, but I want to see him stay healthy and be established, and the Nuggets win before I kind of make a move on that. But for me, it was Jordan, it was LeBron, it was Giannis, it was Luka, all the Steph Curry, all the the bigger names. That's who I got into. Because
Luka's. It's funny how Luka's not a prospect anymore.
Isn't it?
I love Luka. I mean, the show's called Luka's Tigers Bronze.
Yep.
But I'm telling you guys, Luka is he's a prospect.
Yeah, 100%.
He's still a prospect. He might be the best of the prospects, but it's funny how Luka, and I want to ask you about.
He's a prospect who drops a 30-point triple-double basically every night. So I mean, he's a pretty safe.
Oh, listen, he's a stud. He's fun to. He's awesome. He's fun to watch. But it's just like, yeah, I mean, he hasn't won yet. Has he won an MVP? Has he won the championship?
It's funny how like prospecting works. Like my next question is Mike Trout a prospect still? Which we'd obviously say no, he's not. But the guy's never won. We can come back to. I want to get your state of the union. I want to get Kevin, the captain's take on the last 12 months in the hobby. From if we could go back to August 2020, where we saw Luka Prism go $2,000 for a base that has 15,000, which is basically insane, right? To here we are, BGS is closed down, PSA is closed down. It's a little bit of stale market. Obviously, there's some record sales, but there's not as much activity. What did you see happen in the last 12 months? And, what might you foresee in the next 12?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that the market's leveled off a little bit, which I think is healthy. It was way too high. And unfortunately, I feel very bad for anybody who got in the stuff at that peak because, boy, have they taken a bath and they've been killed. It sucks, right? So, it's so funny. Like we're in the world where people love saying "I told you so." Like all the Instagram accounts out there, like, "Oh, I told you this, I told you that." Like, how about you just don't be an asshole, right? Like, have a little sympathy for some people who just got in the hobby and jumped in at the peak, and now they hate the hobby, right? That's not good for the hobby, right? We need people around the hobby. Anybody who got in at the peak who's now has, they paid X amount and now it's worth 20% of that, they're done, right? So if we lose people in the hobby, that's never good long term. But I think it's in a better spot now in terms of stuff leveling off and maybe a better reflection of what cards are actually worth. But in terms of a stale market, I guess it depends on what you have. I'm pretty specific in what I have, so I don't see it as much because I collect the guys who are in. I'm fortunate to have the guys who are in high demand, especially for me locally, being in New England. Obviously, even though he went to the Bucs, people still want Brady. It's actually my Brady inventory is the lowest it's ever been right now. I'm in a situation now where the last 3 or 4 shows I've sold so much stuff I haven't been able to buy anything. So now it's like I'm having to have those dark nights in my office where I'm like, all right, what do I want to pull out of the PC possibly to put in the showcase? Like it's getting difficult, right? So I think that's a good thing. I think we're seeing people starting to hoard the right stuff, and it's GOAT stuff, right? People are putting that stuff away. Like I've never had a dry spell in shows like this where I haven't been able to buy Brady or Mahomes. It just never happened, right? So I think people have become smarter, right? Even those new people who are in the hobby are hopefully still around. They become smarter on what they're buying, right? You don't want the high pop base prism stuff. That's why that market tanked, right? I still think there's a market for that stuff, right? But at the same time, I think people have smartened up a little bit in terms of what they're buying and what they're collecting, what they want to hold. And I also think that maybe the people who are still around have maybe a little bit more of a long-term view now than the short-sighted view, than the quick flip. Because if you can, I tell people all the time, it's like, oh my God, Brady's so expensive. I want to get a rookie. I don't have $2-3 grand to spend. All right, whatever you spend on Brady today, it's going to be worth 5 times what it is in 5 to 10 years. That's just my belief, right? Could I be wrong? Of course I could. We have no idea what the market's going to be then, right? But with that being said, I think the market's changed in the sense that people are smarting up a little bit, which I think is good. But
real quick, not to just cut you off. For those people, just short answer. I don't have $2 to $3K to spend on Brady or substitute anybody. Do you ever recommend fractional, whether that's Rally, Otis, or collectible? Or
yeah, that's not my thing. I don't. I'm a guy who doesn't like to speak on things he doesn't know enough about. So I don't like to give information that's not accurate. So I don't know enough about it to even speak on it, to be honest with you. Cool. It's just something I haven't done. My thing is I'm trying to make money on the side and stuff like that and supplement my shitty ass teacher income, right? And pay for the man cave, right? But it's something I've never done because I like my tangible cards. I like holding my cards.
Here. His reason, this is the 10 for 10 for collectors. He's a
right?
collector. He wants the card in his hand. He wants to collect. He wants to have it. And we'll end it with this. Because I won't make you do 1. You can go up to 3 because 1 might be too hard. But earlier in the show, you mentioned your coffin. You're going to bring some with you to your grave. You're going to take them with you. What are you taking? What's the card? What's the card to? I said you can go up to 3 if you like. What are the ones that you are not getting rid of? They pry it from my cold dead hands.
All right, so what I'll do is I'll give one for each one of my guys. Brady,
Right.
Peyton, Mahomes. I think
Cool.
So for Mahomes, the last card I will sell of him is the 2017 Prism Green Scope BGS 9.5. So I have a thing for scopes, right? Because they have the old PMG feel to them, right? Which is going to lead to my Peyton Manning coffin card. So I just love to look at that card. You know, I like I told you guys earlier, I did cash out some of my Mahomes stuff. But the 2017 Prism Green Scope, that's the last Mahomes album. I just love to look at that card. For Peyton, it would be the 1998 Precious Metal Gems BGS 9 that I have. You know, that's a, you know, there's the Mahomes, right? Just a gorgeous card, right? And if you pull up the Peyton, if you can find a Peyton, I think there is a Peyton on eBay actually. You can see that where it has the PMG roots.
PMG?
Yeah, 1998 Precious Metal Gems Peyton. Yeah, Metal Universe.
It's cool. A little darker background, but cool card.
Yeah, so you see that where Panini got their design, right? There it is. So that's my Peyton coffin card. I mean, I would say that the 24K Gold Brilliance Peyton, number 24, BGS 9 I have is pretty damn close behind the PMG, but if I had to push came to shove, I would take the PMG. And then for Brady, it wouldn't be a rookie. It would actually be, I have his first ever Topps Chrome Gold refractor. It's 2003 Topps Chrome Gold X-Fractor, number to 101 Brady BGS 9.5. There's only one PSA 10 on the card. And I think there's only 2 or 3 copies. That's actually not the one. That's the draft picks.
That's the draft picks.
Yeah, it's 2003 Topps Chrome Gold X-Fractor Brady. And they make 2 versions of it, the base version, the weekly wrap-up version. I'm not sure if there's any on eBay right now. So that's, yeah, so it looks like that, but it's the base version. This is the weekly wrap-up version. A little less desirable. So I would take the base version to the grave. Like, I love that card. I think it's such an important card. You know, I think that once a, you know, 2012, I know almost everybody who owns a 2012 Prism Gold Brady, and only, you know, who the hell knows what that's worth right now, right? But I think if one of those ever sells, right now you're going to see, and you're actually starting to see it, right? The gold stuff across the board has gone crazy. It's gone nutty, right? And I'm fortunate that I've been stuck, you know, stacking Brady gold stuff and just putting this stuff aside for a long time. But that's the one that I would sell every other gold I have before I would sell that one. That's the one that's coming to the grave, coming to the coffin, definitely.
So Cage, I know you got to jump off, go get Ian. Guys, we're probably going to be on, I mean, Cage does this every Friday with Ian. He pulls fire. So stay tuned if you're listening to this Friday night. I'm sure Cage will be live. Kevin, if you have a few minutes, could you stay on? I'd love to hear, you know, what happened with the PSA.
100%.
Cool. So There we go. Awesome. So real quick, just before we jump into the whole PSA story, because when I heard that, man, it broke my heart. It broke my heart. And it's one of those things that my theory, and this is my words, not yours, I think this last year, sports card businesses got richer, but the small girl just getting into the hobby, like you mentioned, they haven't had a great experience.
100%.
And when they hear a story like that, it's like, dude, what? Who is looking out for me?
Exactly.
You know, like, does anybody care about me? Like, I'm the one spending money. I'm supporting this industry. You guys have gotten rich beyond your wildest dreams. At least give off the perception that you care about me, right? So
no doubt
we'll get into that. We'll save that to the end, because when we were doing this show, guys, Kevin's, you know, as much as it obviously pained him, he's like, I don't want to make it about that. I want to add value to your community. I want to share, you know, my story as a collector. What do your high school students, your team, think of? Okay, basketball coach, which by the way to me is like the coolest thing ever.
Thanks, man. Thank you.
And then you have like a 6, 7, 8-figure collection. I don't want to look in your wallet, but like, do they know about that? When you've told with a few people that do, like, what do they think? I'm just curious.
Yeah, so I don't like broadcast it,
Right.
especially because I lived in town of the school, so like you don't want a ton of young teenagers knowing what you have, you know, in your house when they know where you live, right? So
Yeah.
that's a whole.
Especially the ones that aren't playing or on the bench, or
Yeah, the ones I cut, the ones I failed, right? So yeah, you don't want that, right?
I'll show you.
But the ones who know about it, my basketball guys, because oftentimes we practice Sunday mornings, and if I have a show, I'll change it to Sunday night. So they'll say, "Coach, what's up?" You know, so like, guys, I got a card show. So like, what do you mean card show? I'm like, sports cards. So as the hobbies become more mainstream, like they ask me a lot more questions now. You know, so they knew I was going. We have our summer workouts. We work out twice a week during the summer with the kids, and I'm like, all right, guys, I'm not going to be here next week. I'm going to Chicago, and you know, my my point guard goes, "Well, you going to a card show, coach?" I said, "Yeah, I am. I'm going to the National Sports Card Convention, right?" Then I came back. He's like, "How was it?" I said, "Well, it was pretty good to the point that I'm kind of considering not coming back to teaching and maybe doing this." So he's like, "Really?" I'm like, "Yeah, it's been crazy." So that's a whole other conversation. But yeah, so I don't broadcast it a ton because I'm not like that. And boy, does that lead to a whole other conversation with people who like to broadcast everything and show their wads of cash at shows and stuff like that. Like that's just not me. I think people who do that are just setting themselves up for disaster. But at the same time, it's fun when the kids talk about it and they ask you questions about it and stuff like that. And I've had some players who have graduated kind of get into it a little bit, and they'll text me and ask me questions about it and stuff like that, which is awesome, you know. But back to what you said about how the past year hasn't been a very good experience for the new collector. You're right. I mean, you know, we were talking earlier. I think Cage was mentioning how, you know, he used to, you know, grade his 2012 Prism stuff for $8-9 a pop.
Yes, he did.
Right. Where the hell are those days? I got my best friend who was the best man at my wedding. I was the best man at his wedding. He just got into sports cards in the past year and a half. And it was very difficult for me to tell him where to go because like the days of being able to go to the card shop and spend $200, get a box or two, some packs, get some stuff graded cheap, those are gone. Right. So it's like you have to put so much money in up front now to start a collection. It's insane. It's mind boggling, you know? So it's very difficult. And I think back to going to the card shop when I was younger, with, you know, $10-15 and buying a couple of singles and a couple of packs and being pumped. Like, you know, $10-15 might buy you a thing of top loaders now. Like it's just, it's crazy. So the experience for the kids is just completely, you know, gone in a negative direction.
So I don't want this to be, and guys, if you really saw what I see here, you would understand where this next question comes from. But like your friend who got into the hobby a year and a half ago, or your high school students or players, you know, do you see them getting into sports cards? Do you see them getting into NFTs, which I just think are digital collectibles, or is it kind of a combination of both?
So nobody in my circle is getting into NFTs. So that's just, I know nothing about them. I don't fully understand the draw to them, but people can say the same thing about sports cards, right? Any type of alternative asset, you know, people can always say, well,
if I could rephrase the word NFTs, I was going to use digital collectibles, right? Because we're talking, it's basically tangible and digital collectibles.
Yeah.
Here we have the tangible collectibles that the best of the best have gotten so pricey that the entry point is so high.
Yeah.
Whereas some of these digital collectibles, they're new. We have no idea what's going to happen, but at least there's some meat on the bone left.
Yeah.
I guess that's why I'm asking. No,
that makes sense to me. I mean, so for me, I go back to what I talked about earlier with like why I don't do the fractional stuff, because I just like having my cards. Like, you know, if I'm having a shitty day, shitty week, you know, before I go to bed, I'll pour a glass of Captain and go upstairs and look at my Brady Gold box, my Brady Rookie box, my Peyton Rookie box, right? And just, you know, chill my cards for a little bit, right? It's an escape, right? So, you know, that's also why I don't vault my stuff, right? Because I like looking at it. I like having it in my hands, right? There's something to be said, but that's how I am. And I completely understand the other side of the coin and the other perspective. I get that. That's just me. So what I'm seeing from the people who are around me, I mean, naturally they're looking at what I'm doing and they kind of want to imitate a little bit, right? So they're not really going to that. But I know people who I'm close with who are going into the other digital routes, like you said, and they're being very successful, which is awesome.
And vaulting, not to cut you off, I mean, vaulting is like a pseudo, right? Like how many people at National, I mean, especially like 30 and below, they're like, hey, you want to trade? And they're like, sure, this is my PWCC vault, right? And they'll pull it up. And it's like, okay, you do own the tangible card, but if, let's say you ordered it from eBay 2 years ago, you send it right to PWCC, you might have never even felt that card. So It's kind of like this, it's interesting.
And we know things can happen in shipping, right? So it's like, you know, I do a deal with you and shit, you know, I got to deal with waiting for the card and stuff like that. So, you know, unfortunately, there's been more and more horror stories, and I've lived through one of them, right? But I just like, there's something to be said about having the stuff for the show in hand, do the deal, shake hands, boom, get it done. You both walk away happy. So I'm still very much a guy who wants to have his cards in front of him, if that, you know, makes sense.
So guys, we'll get into, maybe we'll wrap with like kind of Kevin's State of the Union, maybe 1, 2, 3 tips for collectors, or like kind of, you know, you're a teacher, so you're good at this. You know how to give a lesson or say, this has worked for me, maybe you could do it. But let's talk about PSA, because I saw your live, I watched it. I couldn't even watch it all the way through. I felt terrible. I was like, I messaged our community because we have these Instagram groups and Discord. I was like, guys, watch this, see if you could reshare or support it. Can you give us like what happened, man? Could you share?
Yeah, so I mean, it's pretty simple story. I did a deal at the net. First of all, I never own it. You know, we talked about earlier Brady's marquee cards, non-rookie cards, right? And I mentioned the 2012 Prism Silver in there. I had never owned one. It just an opportunity never popped up. I always thought I'd never be able to afford it. It was too expensive, right? So opportunity struck at the National, right? And within an hour, I owned 4 of them. It was just insane. I owned a PSA 10, I owned a BGS 9.5, and 2 Raws. So my buddy Dave, who has an account at PSA, he does a lot of submissions, a good friend of mine. We go way back. I said, hey, listen, I texted him. He was leaving the show. I said, I want to get these graded. Can I ship these to you? You know, once the show's over. He's like, listen, I'll drive to your hotel tonight and I'll grab them from you before I leave. You know, talk about a good dude, right? Makes a special trip out of his way. So, because he knows I hate shipping super high-end cards. I hate it.
Sucks.
I'm not like a nervous person by nature or anxiety. I get anxiety shipping high-end shit because the minute you drop that thing off, your money in cards in somebody else's hands. That concerns me, right? Obviously, as we're going to hear from the story, right? So he does me a solid, comes, gets the cards, right? He ships it out, Super Express. You know, a week goes by, and he has a system set up through his website that he has where you get text updates as things go through the process. That's awesome, right? He's really streamlined everything for everybody that submits through him. And I didn't get the text that, it was entered in the system. So I texted him. He's like,
Super Express is 5 days, 2 days?
What's it supposed to be versus what it is? I don't even know, right? So if I get the cards back in a month, I'm happy at this point, right? It's crazy. I think it's supposed to be I think Super Express is supposed to be 2 and Express maybe 5, something like that. I'm not positive, but regardless, he knew something was up and something was going on. So he, was emailing his rep, and his rep was kind of blowing him off like, yeah, Brady's cards are delayed, whatever, it'll get in there. And then it didn't. So long story short, the bottom line is I'm out the cards. PSA is fully admitted that the cards are not with them, so they're gone. So there's some asshole walking around with 2 2012 Prism Silvers and a Josh Allen 2018 Prism blue tie cut, just laughing his way to the bank. But I'm a believer in karma, so hopefully they get theirs.
And I know these aren't your words, but they were dropped off at PSA, right? So
all I can say is the facts that the tracking number says it was delivered and signed by somebody at PSA. That's it. So there's many different things that could have happened. Could a FedEx driver have opened up packages and switched stuff out? Of course, right? I don't know. So I don't want to come on here and do another blame PSA or blame FedEx, whatever. The bottom line is the cards are gone. That's it. And somebody has them, stole them. That's it. And I highly doubt this is the first time, right? I was just the unlucky customer that day. So little update on this whole situation, which you're the first person hearing this. I was actually going to go live, but I figured I'd save it since you guys would have me on. I appreciate what you guys are doing. I love coming on, talking cards. So the latest is now PSA saying that they're going to take some liability here, because my last live was they basically said, we don't think we're liable. So nothing's in my hands yet in terms of money or anything like that. I'm definitely not going to get the full value on the cards because they weren't declared for what the full value is now. Of course, just to kind of pour salt in the wound, a BGS 9 pops off for almost, I think it was $9K the other night. I'm just sitting here like, oh my God, this is just brutal, right? Like just twist the knife, right? I mean, of course, it helps my PSA 10 and my BGS 9.5, but it's like I got 2 Raws that were both guaranteed PSA 9s. One had a shot at a 10. I'll never get that full value back, but it's kind of trending toward the fact that I'll be getting something back. So it's not definite, set in stone yet. So I'm going to wait to go live until I actually have something in my hands in terms of compensation. But I did want to throw that out there on your podcast today, that there's been some dialogue back and forth where they say, okay, the bottom line is, like you said, there's a tracking number saying it was delivered here. So we're going to take some liability here. So I'll be the first one to go on live and give an update, once I get compensated, because saying you're going to compensate somebody and actually doing it are 2 different things, right? But that's kind of the most recent update that happened within this last week that I haven't told anybody yet. So there it is.
I love it. I appreciate you sharing. And I said this on our show yesterday. I'm the believer that businesses aren't just a business to make money. I think businesses are a business to make money, but also to give back to their community. And I think rating companies, I want to hear your take, because you bought a BGS 9.5 and a PSA 10. And I'm curious if you could educate the consumer of what you're seeing with those 2 companies and how you decide when to buy 9.5 versus 10, or how do you decide BGS versus PSA, and looking at that, because that changes all the time. But I would wish that these companies that have had success in the last year not saying open their bank and say give everything away. I just think that there is an opportunity using the resources. And remember, money is just one resource. Connections, leverage is another one, where they can reach an agreement, whether that's with UPS or FedEx or something that really protects the customer, right?
100%.
Protects their graders to show that they care about the consumer. Now, I'm not going to come here and say this is what I suggest because I'm not in their shoes. I don't know their space. But I also know that a $700 million company with Steve Cohen behind it, Nat Turner, have some resources and have some pull power to still make a ton of money and help the community. And that would be my ask. Like, I don't think it's that crazy. So I appreciate you sharing. I'm glad it's pseudo resolved. I don't know.
It better state than it was when I came on the live a couple of weeks ago. So we'll see where it goes, but better state.
I'm this type of guy. Like when our sponsors tell us they've paid us, or someone's like, they say like, well, when's a deal done? I say a deal done is when that money's in my account and the card has been delivered, and they say that they've got it. 100%. To me, I only like up until that point, I'm like, it's not a done deal. They need to receive the card. They need to say it's good. It looks good. I need that message. The money needs to clear my account, and then I say thumbs up. Talk to me about. BGS is interesting, right? For the last year, I kind of bashed them, but I'm also sitting here thinking like they're only one or two right moves away from being back at level with PSA, where they used to trade at 80% of a PSA 10. Now do you see it 40, 50%? Talk to me about how you navigate. When do you buy BGS? When do you buy PSA? What are you seeing from those two companies?
Well, I think as somebody who's married to somebody who does PR, I think Beckett needs some serious PR help.
Yeah.
Right? The one thing I'll give PSA a ton of credit for is they've been very public with improvements they've been trying to make, hiring new staff, bigger facilities, et cetera, et cetera. And all that stuff to me is like, okay, they see a problem. I actually have a ton of respect for them shutting down, right? Something that rubbed a lot of people the wrong way, right? But I think that was smart, right? Listen, we can't handle this right now. We're shutting down. We're going to hire new staff. We're going to try to take care of this and get caught up so we can give you guys a better product and streamline the process more. I think huge credit to Nat Turner and the decision that was made there. I think that was smart, right? But in terms of comparing the companies, I mean, what have you heard about Beckett in terms of making improvements over the past year? It's crickets, right?
It makes no sense.
I haven't heard. It's unbelievable, right? You look at your number one competitor putting stuff out weekly, like State of the Union addresses and shit like that, and you're not doing anything. So part of it to me is they're like, all right, we're making so much money, we don't give a shit, right? Which goes back to what you said, right? Like, it's like making money is one thing, but keeping your consumer base happy is another. If you want returning customers, right? But so I guess
to me, it's a responsibility. Like I come from small business, that's why you go into business is
100%.
So I'm very passionate about it. It upsets me that companies now are just like profit driven. I'm like, the profit is in exchange for doing positive and doing good to people. But sorry to cut you off.
No, but you're 100% right. I think that's maybe more of a statement on society and humanity, that may be specific to cards, but that's a whole other conversation, right? But in terms of which one I'd go with, I actually like Beckett's slabs better. I think they protect the card more. I like the inner sleeve, which actually PSA started doing the inner sleeve. Yep. I had a bunch of older Chrome Brady refractors and some Prism home stuff where the card started to stick to the surface of the PSA slab. It almost looks like there was moisture in there, but it's not. Yeah. It was pressing, right?
It's like a ring or something like that. I actually saw it on Twitter the other day. Nat commented.
Yeah. So it's now they're putting sleeves in higher end cards when you send them in between the case, which is awesome, right? But I still I got some higher end cards where the sleeve doesn't look right in the case. Like it just, it's a work in progress. But once again, hey, credit to them for trying to identify the problem and trying to improve, right? I just like Beckett's slab. I feel like it's sturdier. The card doesn't jiggle around, which I feel like it protects the card more. But with that being said, PSA 10 it's not even close, right? So in terms of where do I go in terms of buying? When it comes to Brady and Peyton and Mahomes, I buy either one. I don't discriminate against either company. Whatever comes to my booth, I'll buy. Obviously, PSA is better, but it's going to be more expensive, right? So a lot of this conversation is what's your budget, right? So if somebody comes to me and says, hey, I got $2,000 to spend on a Tom Brady rookie. I really want a PSA 10. What's your suggestion? I might say, well, you're not going to find a ton of Tom Brady PSA 10 rookies, but you might be able to find a 9.5. And, right. It's all relative, right? I mean, well, hey, I mean, PSA is the thing, right? That's what everybody wants. That's going to go up down the road. Yeah. So as PSA 10s go up down the road, Beckett 9.5s are going to pull up right behind it, right? So might not make the bigger margin, but it's all about your budget and what you can spend. So
and Eric Myers, Heoli Hustle, who has become kind of my mentor from afar, he talks about, we always plan entry strategy, but we don't plan exit strategy, right? So like, because I asked him, I said, how do you explain a PSA 10 Jordan selling for, let's say, $400K? The equivalent BGS 9.5 with quad 9.5s, some would even say it might be a better aesthetically looking card than that 10, sold for $78K.
Yeah, it's mind blowing. I mean, I've been in this for a long time. I still don't understand that. I really don't.
It doesn't make a lot of sense, right? And he said, well, actually, people think about, okay, so 400 to 800,000. Okay, it goes up 100%. But the BGS 9.5 goes 78 to 110. So it doesn't go up 100%, but you could have bought 5 or 6, and now you could sell 3 of them, and you're still invested, but you've basically paid off your initial principal.
Yeah.
So he talked through exit strategy as important as entry strategy is.
Very great conversation. Very smart. I think that makes a lot of sense. So PSA 10 is a sexier thing right now, right? But at the same time, you can do just as well buying BGS 9.5s. I think there's a lot of value in them right now.
It's funny you said PR. First off, guys, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter's free. Like PRs could not have been easier. Just put we care about our customers. Here's what we're trying to do. Stay with us. Even that's better than nothing. And I'm right there with you. I've been saying that all year, but I also flipped it, and I've thought about BGS and PSA as like investments, like as they were cards. I'm like, they're also one really good statement away from their cards having a little more appreciation, so to speak, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
I want to ask you one last thing about prospecting in the NBA. You're a coach. You know basketball. I think one of the biggest mistakes people make is they look at box scores when it comes to investing in players.
So true.
Versus watching players. They look at Tyler Hero. He had a great rookie year, a terrible sophomore year, and they're like, wow, this guy's done. But they didn't watch the games to know, his rookie year, he was sixth man. Now he got asked to run the point guard. He's a pure scorer. Now he's trying to run the game. He also had a shortened off season. So the last year's season was his preseason. So he was learning on the job. Now this year, Kyle Lowry's here. So maybe he'll revert back to a 6-man role where he's more comfortable. So you got to watch what's behind those numbers.
Yeah, I mean, people don't realize everybody's like, I want my guys like Hero, right? Great example you brought up, right? Coming off the bench is totally different than being a starter, right? Like the amount of defensive responsibility and scouting work that's put in as a starter, right? You have so much Hero could just come off the bench and play his game and score. They just wanted points off the bench, right? You got to put a whole new level of responsibility on him when he's starting now in that lineup, right? And Spoelstra is very cerebral. Like they do a great job game planning. The defense they played in their run to the championship was, and I'm a defensive coach, right? So it was just so fun to watch them play. And people don't usually. That's not the stuff that sells the tickets and gets people engaged. The hard-nosed defensive battles in basketball. That's the stuff that I eat up, and I love that shit, right? You look at my teams. I mean, we've been the best defensive team in our division for the last 8 years, right? That's what we pride ourselves on. So yeah, I think it's so. Oh man, I'd be curious to hear your answer to this. What percentage of the basketball investor market do you think actually watches games versus looks at box scores?
Like 10%, man. They watch like Hoops Nation and Dunk. They watch these Instagram posts.
Yep.
And they'll look at a highlight and they'll be like, "Oh, this guy's amazing." But so few, and I don't get it. I really don't get it.
And can you just imagine pouring money into something that you don't know it? I just don't get it. Right? I don't get it. Like if I'm going to put my hard-earned money into something, I'm gonna freaking know about it, right?
I flip it. I want to flip. I say your competitive advantage is so easy. Just watch the games. You don't even have to do anything. Sit on your couch and watch the games.
Yep.
Buy League Pass, invest whatever it is. I mean, all the games are streamed, for example. But watch the games. You will have success. It's the competitive advantage actually way easier than it seems.
No doubt, definitely.
So like with Jordan Poole, for example, like I was big on Jordan Poole. His cards are now insanely too high for what he's accomplished, and now he's getting put into the starting lineup because Clay doesn't come back till January. Oh, that seems like it's good, but it's not going to be as easy of a transition as people realize.
Of course.
And now when he comes off the bench, he's a 6-man, but he's the first option scoring where now he's with Curry and Wiggins. So now he's maybe the third.
Yeah.
So his points are going to go down. He's going to impact the game in other ways. I know you're not a huge prospector, but NBA, anyone excites you? Anyone under the radar for this upcoming year? We're a few weeks out.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest. So my allegiance when it comes to basketball lies in college basketball because, for me, the high school game to the NBA game is just so different because it's so much more individualized in the NBA. So I'm a big college guy because college is still system-based. Of course, it's individual now too, right? We're seeing, a shift. We talked about the shift in the NFL market earlier where it's becoming more player-based versus coach. It's starting to happen in college too. Players get paid now, endorsements, stuff like that, which I'm all for. They deserve. But, I like watching a team play a system, whereas, a guy, taking 50% of his team shots. You know what I mean? So if that makes sense.
And dribbling for 20% of the shot clock and chucking it up like Harden did.
So for me, it's not so much a prospect that I like. I love Curry. I think if you bought Curry stuff in the offseason, you were going to do so well with that stuff because he became like the forgotten guy. He kind of like got Russell Wilson a little bit. Like we talked about earlier, he won early and often, and all of a sudden, like they haven't won. There's been some injuries and bad luck, and like he's kind of like fallen by the wayside. A guy who was in the MVP running last year, now getting Clay back. I think they got a great shot to do some damage in the West. So like I actually am not a huge basketball guy, but I picked up a couple decent Currys in the offseason and saying to myself, I definitely think there's a window here where his stuff can kind of go through the roof because he was putting up the stats last year, but they weren't winning. So, he's putting up the stats this year and they're winning now, and they start being a conversation for Western Conference Finals and stuff like that. That's going to help his value tremendously. So I'm not as much of a prospect guy, so I can't speak on that, but Curry's a guy that I targeted. I didn't get as much as I wanted to. But I got a couple decent cards to him. I'm pretty excited.
He's a tough buy too, right? Because Curry, this is the fun thing about sports cards. And I know we're going a little longer, but I'm so excited for this 10 for 10 because, we have businesses on and that's fun. But like the true fun, like the true joy where I'm not nervous, I'm excited. It's just the conversations with collectors. It's like, which card do you buy with Curry, right? He wasn't early enough to be in that Prism era, so you have to buy like a Prestige. Yep. Very few national treasures, and then there's like that babyface Topps portrait card, but there's so low supply, it's almost like forgotten in the sports card space too. So like, what card do you buy, or what cards?
Yeah, so what I would after there's been a gold rush over the past 4 to 5 months, right? Literally. So what I actually did, going back to that, it always circles back to Brady somehow, right, with me. But the Brady, when I got rid of my spare 2002 Topps Chrome Black Refractor PSA 10 and my friend Joey E-Trader on Instagram, there was a Curry in that deal. He had a PSA 8 Topps Gold Curry, which I love the card. It's just hilarious. He looks like he's 11 years old on that, right? Looks like someone who's playing on some middle school like AAU team.
Babyface assassin. People don't even call him that anymore, but like for the first 6 years of his league,
right?
Babyface assassin.
But I'm like, you look at what is and Joey, what a great guy to deal with, right? It's always nice when you can deal with people who know that, he knows I don't know as much about basketball. So he told me, he's like, Kev, listen, he's like, this is a good card to have in the future. He's like, because he knew I like Curry. He's like, listen, he's like, look at, anytime there's a Topps Chrome Gold refractor sale of him, it's going to help this card. And I see it in football, right? So it made a lot of sense to me. So, the card's already gone up without even any playing since I got it from him in sales. So, he wasn't bullshitting me. He gave me some sound advice, and it's definitely, you want to talk about good hobby advice, have some good connections who are friends who you can trust, right? They're not just trying to send you in weird directions, right? That are honest with you, right? That's why, I really try, like, it's so tough to keep up with DMs sometimes on Instagram, especially like on Sundays or in football and stuff. But I try to answer everybody because, I know that the advice I've been given, by people who are close to me, people who aren't close to me, who just want to talk to me about stuff, has been so invaluable to me. I try to give that back. You talked about giving back to the community and stuff like that. That's what I try to do, right? But I was pumped to get that card in the deal, and it's already gone up a little bit, and I think it's got a lot more room to grow. It was one that I put out in my showcase at one show, and then like people started asking about it. I'm like, shit, do I really want to move this? I kind of like the card.
This needs to go back to the PC.
I pulled it. I haven't put it out in a show in 2 months. So it's like, it's a card. I'm excited about Curry. And I love Curry, man. I mean, as a guy who respects Peyton Manning so much because of what he did for the game and how he changed the game, look at how much Curry's changed the game.
Game.
It's unbelievable.
And from like a fan of watching basketball, like you talk about college, I think a part of it is watching teams run plays.
Yeah, me too.
I mean, go back and watch it. Like before Durant even got there, that 73-9 team, like watch them move off the ball, watch them cut, why they set picks for each other. I mean, that's really true basketball. Like my best friend from high school is a high school basketball coach. And I was a soccer player at first. So I learned basketball. I picked it up at 22, played till 28. Like I really fell in love with the game.
Yep.
He taught me so much, and I started watching for like nuance like that, like how a team plays. It's so much fun.
Yep. Yeah, when you can watch a game through a more X's and O's, I'm a huge X's and O's guy. You can watch it through more of an X's and O's lens, you appreciate. And just for Curry too, like that guy might be in the best shape ever. Like the amount of screens he runs off of, and just the guy never gets tired. And Steve Kerr talks about it all the time. It's like it's just amazing, right? So, you know, the way that guy works to get open, and the way his teammates work to get him open, understanding that he's the dude. Right, it's fun to watch. They're definitely fun to watch, no doubt.
Real quick, I mean, this could be a 3-hour episode. We'll wrap here. Something I've been doing to get back to everybody on DM is I send voice messages now, because it's so, you know how it's so like it really is tough to type out.
No doubt.
Answer. You know, like people ask, you know, I want to buy a Ja Morant, and there's this fast break card available for $150. Which, by the way, I think the Grizzlies are going to start out pretty hot this year. They're a young team. They're kind of annoyed at, you know, being 8th, 7th, or 8th seed, and they've
I love Ja. I'm a big fan of Ja. Yeah, definitely.
So instead of responding like I sent him a voice message. I said, I'm a believer in Ja. I think they come out hot this year, but a lot of people don't like fast break because it's a retail product. You know, typically go look at hobby products if you can, but at that price point, you're right. And I'm able to crank out a lot more responses, and I think people actually appreciate the responses more. I've been doing a lot more audio.
I'm probably going to steal that from you, to be honest with you. That's cool. Definitely.
LukaNation. This is going to be, I know this is going to be a blast. This is going to be an amazing series. So it's going to be our 10 for 10 collector series. And honestly, who better to kick it off with basically Cage from New England? That's what I pick it up. Both Raiders fans.
Yeah, we could drink together. We could kick a few bad together. Cage is a good dude, definitely.
Guys, reach out. You'll see it's DaCaptain37 on Instagram. One of the best guys in the hobby. We hope you enjoyed the show. Kev, I've learned a lot from you, so I appreciate you taking.
I really appreciate having me on, man. I had a blast. So I love what you guys are doing. You guys are doing a lot for the hobby, and you know the hobby appreciates it. Thanks again.
We try sometimes more.